All right, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today, our topic is one about what happens when we have a really short follow-up. What do we do when we've got a consult that doesn't go the way that we expected, which can happen for many, many different reasons. So we're going to be talking about how do we optimize our engagement with the client. Oh, DC, you're able to hear me? Yes, those of you who are listening, you're able to hear me? If anybody's having trouble with connectivity, you can drop off and join back in. Okay, and that might help you get a better connection for those of you who are having trouble. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Our consult today is, or our goal today is to optimize client engagement under favorable circumstances. So here's our inspiration. I don't know if you guys ever go to this website. It's www.wowforyou.com. And every once in a while, when I am feeling like I need some inspiration, I will go and look there and see what I can find. So I'm going to share a document with you from that. It's called And Then Some. And the author is talking about how she was discussing with someone about a speech. And the author was talking about one simple principle of success that he saw over and over again. And it was called And Then Some. There were successful people who obtained top positions because when it came to their work, they did what needed to be done and then some. And they had strong friendships because they were friends who were good friends and then some. And they were always helping out, kind and thoughtful, and then some. And they never gave up on any goals. When met with challenges, they took action to overcome the challenges and then some. So I'm going to make this document available for you guys to be able to see, or you can go and find it at this link. And this is the basis of our conversation today so that we have a chance to see and then some. All right. So what are we doing today? Our roadmap for today. We're going to talk about the challenge of success. Sometimes things are going great and that actually causes problems. If it's clearly going well, what are some next steps that we can use when our interactions with the clients? We're going to talk about the client investment in the consult and how do we leverage favorable circumstances. And then we're actually going to talk about how do we frame the therapeutic process with the clients? What are the stages of therapeutic engagement? How do we lay the groundwork to help the client get the most out of homeopathy that they can? And how do we use these short, unexpected follow-ups to help us actually improve our service to get to the land of and then some with our clients? That's what we're doing. Okay, so let's just frame this scenario. The client comes in for a follow-up, and the client reports that there was a lot of improvement. Oh, my migraines are gone. Oh, the vomiting stopped. Oh, the skin stopped itching, whatever it is. The client says, I'm better. And the practitioner, doing their due diligence, actually reviews all of the symptoms and parts of the pattern that were the basis of that remedy selection, in order to make sure, because sometimes people come in and they say, oh, I'm so much better. They really want you to feel good about what you're doing. And so they say, I'm so much better. But then when you actually start to investigate and quantify, they're like 2% better, and they're just trying to make you feel good. So that's not what we're looking for here. The practitioner really needs to do their due diligence and make sure that everything is okay when the client reports improvement. But let's say that the practitioner does their due diligence and the discussion with the client confirms that everything's great. Their migraines are gone, they're sleeping well, they forgave their mother, they're getting along well with their husband. And what do you do now? You're 9 minutes into an hour consult. The first time this happened to me, I didn't know what to do. I had never had this experience before. And so I said to the client, wow, it's great that you're doing so well. Let's just accumulate a quarter hour on your tab for this consult, and we'll schedule your next appointment and we can settle up then. Because I didn't know what else to do. I thought, well, I can't charge them for the whole time, and there's nothing else to talk about, and I don't want to be taking up their time if I don't need to. So that was one option. Another one was to say, wow, it's great that you're doing so well. Given the short amount of time we've used today, I'll just charge you for an acute visit today, and let's go ahead and schedule a follow-up. Have any of you guys had this experience? Any of you had this going on? No, not so much. It was just me. Okay. So, are we afraid then to keep the client for the full amount of the consult? My fears were that I didn't have anything to say to the client. If they were better, then I was taking up their time, and maybe they don't want to talk to me. Maybe I was bothering them. Even though since then, I have very often heard, and I'm sure you have heard, people say to you, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for taking the time to really clarify the symptoms. Thank you for helping me think through this. Those are messages that I hear. Those are messages that we as homeopaths hear. So we need to respond to this fear by reminding ourselves that we are in service to these clients, and it's not about us. Okay? So when you have a short consult like this, you're 9 minutes into an hour-long consult, we tend to think about what's our investment here. When I think about my homeopathic practice, this is my purpose in the world, my being in service in the world. And so this is my engagement in my life work. It's also my income. And it's also true that the practitioner in this scenario has the same amount of extra time outside the consult of arranging the scheduling, reviewing the notes in order to be ready to talk to the client, providing on-call support, charting what's happened, handling the billing, doing a reminder call or email before the next consult. Whether we talk to them for 15 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, all that other stuff takes the same amount of time. So we tend to think of these short consults as a problem from our side. But I just want to remind you, the client also has an investment. What did the client have to do to show up in your office for those 9 minutes? Did they have to take time off work? Did they have to arrange for somebody else to go pick up their kids from childcare or from school or from soccer practice? Did they have a long commute time? I have clients who have spent an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours driving to get to where I am. And I'm sure that's true for some of you as well. And what about the emotional burden? Sometimes people are scared to come see us. What if the last consult was one where it really went deep and it brought up a lot of painful stuff for that client? And they're a little stressed about coming to see you. Maybe they didn't sleep so well last night. Maybe because their symptoms are so limiting, it's painful for them to even come and discuss them with us. And they had to go through all that in the 24 to 48 hours before the consult. Or maybe they have a spouse or a parent or a family member or another practitioner who has been telling them homeopathy is crap and you shouldn't even be doing this. And then maybe they had a big fight with their spouse about even coming to see us. And maybe also you've been a fantastic listening ally. And they were hoping to have this time of your attention and of your support and of a connection with you. So when we get to 9 minutes into the consult, given our investment and the client's investment, what is an appropriate and then some kind of response in this setting? What do we do in this setting? So I'm going to present one idea, one series of ideas of things that we can do. The first thing I want you to remember is that we have a positive thing happening here. We can get all scared and worried about it and make it a negative thing by this time issue, but we have a big success here. The client's happy. They're doing well. Hurrah. Yay, Hanuman. And so this is actually a very positive time for us to consider further engaging with the client. So this is a time when we can also anchor the client into forward progress. Clients very often do not recognize how limited they are or how much homeopathy can help them. Have you ever had this happen where you have a client who comes in and they want you to deal, they say, oh, I've got elbow bursitis, but then you take their case and they're diabetic and they've got memory problems and they've got this horrible skin thing down their neck that keeps them up scratching at night. And you think, wow, your bursitis is not that big a piece of everything that's going on with you in your life. And we see that, but maybe they don't see that. Maybe they are in denial about the limitation in their life. And so they don't, or maybe they don't even know what homeopathy can do. So clients will often come in and focus on one physical complaint, like I have terrible PMS, or I can't get pregnant, or I have mastitis, or I have back pain, or I have sciatica, or I've had grief since my parents died. And they will see it as a one thing that they're coming to you to fix. And they might not see the connection between the grief since their parent died and the horrible shoulder pain that they've had since their parent died. So their default position will very often be, once the horrible shoulder pain is done, our work here is finished. Hooray, we're done. So during these favorable times when the client is feeling happy about what is happening with homeopathy, these are times in the therapeutic journey when we serve our clients well with and then some approaches to help them see into future wellness. One way that we can do this is by framing the therapeutic process. Sometimes when I get 9 minutes into a consult like this, I'll say to the client, okay, let's talk about our journey of where you are from in the past now into current time. There are 3 phases of engagement, and each of them has a different goal. And the client usually only sees the first goal, the first phase. And the first phase is fix what's broke. The person doesn't get their menstrual cycle and they just want their menstrual cycle back. Or they have terrible shoulder pain. Or they have brain fog and fibromyalgia. And they see that one thing as the reason for interaction with you as the homeopath. And they really don't get the holistic nature of what homeopathy is about. So the first thing is fix what's broke. The second thing is reestablish homeostasis and self-regulatory mechanisms so that as soon as they stop taking their remedy, they don't go right back into what's broke again. And then the third thing, once they've got all the self-regulatory mechanisms working, is building capacity. Okay? This is where you build flexibility in people who are rigid. This is where you do important weight management work in people with PCOS who are trying to get pregnant. This is where you help with long-term repair of Sjogren's disease, where you're trying to deal with long-term autoimmune things. You're building capacity for them to live within the constraints of what their last 60 years of life has brought them. So we have to ask ourselves, does this client see the therapeutic process? Do they see the and then some that's more than fix what's broke? And even if the client sees it, even if they see the need for some of these other things, are they aware that homeopathy can help? I've had clients who have said things like, I came to you because I was having, big stress from problems at work, and I was having an ulcer. And now the ulcer's gone and I'm dealing with work. And then we have one of these conversations. Well, where's the opportunity to build capacity? Well, I really would like to have a partner, but homeopathy can't do anything with that. And so the client might not know that any limitations they have around their style of interacting with dating, with finding a potential partner, all that kind of stuff, they may not be aware that that isn't going to likely to go away on its own, and that homeopathy can often help people change their style of engagement in a way that improves their outcomes. Okay? Are any of you guys familiar with this? Have you tried talking with clients about this? So one of the first things you can do once you're 9 minutes into the consult, you can say, okay, let's look at where we are in our therapeutic process. Our first step is fix what's broke. And these were the 5 things that were on our list. And number 1 is 80% better, and number 2 is 50% better. And so we're quantifying and helping them to see the benefit. And so then you can say, so we've come a long way on fix what's broke. And once we get the fix what's broke done, our next phase is reestablishing all the self-regulatory mechanisms so that as soon as you stop taking your remedy, you don't go right into what's broke again. This is laying the groundwork for them to see the benefit of continuing to work with you to build your health. Okay? And then if you're already in that phase, maybe this 9-minute consult happens when you're already in the reestablish homeostasis and self-regulation phase. And then you can say, okay, we got through the fix what's broke, and now we're in the reestablish phase, and now we're moving toward building capacity. And then you can talk about what building capacity is. Okay, so how do we actually support this? For those of you who did not see the webinar that I did, the free CEU webinar 2 times ago, where I talked about diagnostic congruence and getting agreement with the client, this, if you haven't done that with this client, that should be your highest priority for this. What do we do with this available time? You say, all right, if you were in perfect health now, what would your situation look like? What would you feel like physically? What would you feel like mentally, emotionally, experientially? How would you be different? How would your life be different if you were robustly healthy? And you write all that down, and the client is going to feel better about working with you just because you have that engagement with them. Okay? So that's the first priority if you've done, if you've got 9 minutes into the consult and you haven't already done this. And then you are also, by talking to them with the phases of therapeutic process, you are also helping bring clarity to where we are on the therapeutic journey. And part of this is to show them it doesn't stop as soon as their shoulder pain is gone. There's still more to be done. So are we in the territory of what's fixing what's broken? Are we in the ecosystem of repair and self-regulation? Or are we into sort of the wilderness area of building capacity for a healthy, authentic life? Where are we in this? And help the client see this is where we are on this road that we are walking together, where I am your ally. And clients so often this is totally different than the style of engagement that happens in conventional medicine. And so they will not be expecting this. And this will open up new doors to them. They'll look at you and their mouth will fall open and they'll say, wow, I never thought of this. I had no idea that this was even a goal. Okay? So diagnostic congruence helps the client see what's possible. Now, remember, some of you who have been in my classes before, do you remember talking about the iceberg theory? Anybody remember that? The concept of the iceberg theory is that when the client comes in, they're this big iceberg, and here is the waterline. And so they're able to talk to you about what is above the waterline. They're able to describe this much of their entire state. And as you work with them and they take remedies and they engage with you, the waterline begins to drop so that more and more of the topography of their state becomes clear, so that you can engage with them more and more authentically with more data. You can see more of the case. You can select more accurate remedies. So we want over time to become more and more familiar with the client's state. In the initial 2-hour interview, we just get to see the top of the iceberg. And it's really hard to have a deep and complete understanding of somebody just at that point. So we serve our clients best if we understand what is their adaptation in the world. This is the person, the arsenicum client, who's super afraid of being robbed. This is the client who's 36 and still lives at home and still wants to be taken care of as if in a childlike dependency. This is the adaptation that somebody has when they are the first one to volunteer for extra stuff at work because they cannot ever sit still. They have all these uncomfortable feelings that start to come up. And so they begin to be a workaholic overdoer in order to avoid being present with themselves. These are all examples of adaptations in the world. The clients won't describe them this way, but we will recognize them because as homeopaths, we're familiar with these patterns. We also can serve the client best if we understand the way in which they are constrained. How are they limited? How are they shooting themselves in the foot? How are they perceiving their life in a way that is challenging? How are they constrained physically? You know, like somebody with chronic fatigue who doesn't have the energy to do anything. So the difference between what is now, what the client is right now, and what is optimal, we can serve the client best if we know and understand what it is that they want and need. And all of these things, their adaptation in the world, the way that they are constrained, and the difference between what we got now and what would be optimal, all of that happens on the physical level, the mental level, the emotional level, the energetic level. So sometimes the best use that we have of this, we were 9 minutes into it. We did our discussion of where are we in the therapeutic process, what stage are we in, and now we still got more time. So maybe this is the time to do a detailed review of body systems that we didn't have the time to do at the first consult. Maybe this is the time to go back and do a deep dive on, you know, starting to look at the musculoskeletal system overall, a complete review. Sometimes we need to gather more information about specific things and we just hadn't had time to do it yet. Sometimes we can do a deep dive into emotional stuff where you can say, we've got time now to explore something that we really hadn't gotten into before. Let's talk about blah, blah, blah. All right, so these short consults open up windows of time when the client is feeling positive about homeopathy and when the client can feel completely heard with no judgment. We don't have an agenda about this time. We can be in service to our client in a way that supports them. So the easiest way to do this is to be there after we say, you know, the person's better. They've told us, we've gone through and verified, and we can see they're better and we don't want to change their therapeutic plan. It's like power on. So what do we say to the client at that point? It's great that you are doing so well. And now we have the gift of this time together. What is the most important thing we could be talking about today? And then you wait. And you wait in serene silence. I hope you guys are practicing sitting in serene silence, being there and being available to your client without feeling squirmy because you're uncomfortable that it's been 14 seconds and they haven't responded yet, and you're sort of feeling obligated to say, anything, we can talk about anything. Or maybe you don't want to talk and we just ought to close the consult because I'm feeling uncomfortable because nobody's talking here. Does that feel familiar to anybody? Sometimes it happens. So you honor the client by waiting. You honor the client and express your confidence in that client's vital force when you are able to wait. This is a gift to sit and wait. And if you're uncomfortable waiting, doing nothing, you can make little notes in your chart. Write down what the client's wearing. Write down 3 interesting things that you remember about the case. Just be present. Glance up occasionally at them. I usually try to look at their mouth, not at their eyes. And I give them an encouraging smile. I might get a drink of water. And I wait. Now, by waiting, you are saying to that person, I have time for you. And very often when you ask somebody this question, What is the most important thing we could be talking about today? You open the doorway for them to tell you something that's been bothering them that they have never told anybody in their whole life. And it's a weighty decision on their part whether they want to bring this up or not. So honor that. Wait. Be present. Be in service to the client. Your capacity to wait in serene silence is the and then some. Have any of you guys had this experience as a client where someone was able to ask you a question, and while you sort of were in the whirlwind of gathering your thoughts about that, they just waited patiently? They didn't expect you to be off the block knowing something that you hadn't thought of 2 minutes ago. They just waited. It is a beautiful experience, very welcoming. Okay. Now, let's say that you have this conversation with the client and they say the most important thing we could be talking about today is blah, blah, blah. And you talk about that for 20 minutes or half an hour, and then it feels done. And so now you're 40 minutes into your hour-long consult, and you've got 20 minutes left, and you still have an opportunity with the gift of this time together. So I want you to take a look at this. I will make this document available for download with the recording of this. I often, at this point in a consult, will print out this document and I will offer it to the client. What this is a skill set of things that healthy humans are able to do. So just look at it with me. The first column is general about the person's selfness. The second one is how are they doing emotionally? What are the skills that they have emotionally? The third one is mental skills. The fourth one is physical skills. The one thing that you will not find on here anywhere is sexuality. And that's sort of because it's in all of these columns. It doesn't, I don't know quite how to put it in there. So that also is a topic that can be invited if that's a problem. So let's just look at this first column in the document. How aware is this person of themselves? How is their self-concept? Do they have a positive belief system about themselves or a negative belief system? Are they aware of their needs and likes and aversions? This is where all the carcinosin clients and folliculinum clients and people who are very suppressed, they're not aware of their needs and likes and aversions. And this is a limitation for them. How do they do with their personal space and their bodily space? Clients, especially women who had a history where they were molested or raped in the past, they may have a situation where their personal space is non-existent. Somebody can get way too close to them and they just don't know how to manage that. Or they may have the opposite, where their personal space is so huge that they don't even really like sitting very close to you in the consult. Do they feel ownership of themselves and their life? Are they able to prosecute a proactive agenda in their life? Or are they only responding to the demands of others because they actually aren't authentically aware of who they are or what their life is about? And what about their values? Does this person have a moral compass that works for them? And we have to be very careful. This is not your moral compass. It's not my moral compass. It's his or her moral compass. Do they have a spiritual belief system that works for them? Which might be, I'm atheist, and that totally works for me. I think that I am here on the planet as a biological entity, and when I die, and that's it, and that works for me. What we're looking for here is, do they have a belief system that causes them stress and strain? And how do they assign meaning and valuing in their life? Are they okay with that? Or do they tend, people who catastrophize everything, they assign negative meanings to things? And what about their time, their experience of time and their sense of purpose? Are they connected with why they're on the planet? This is a great conversation to have with clients. What's your purpose on the planet? And are they able to proactively use their time, or do they always feel driven to do other people's things? Or they procrastinate and they're not able to proactively use their time and they feel terrible about it? How do they value their daily experience? For a lot of people who are depressed, there is no value, and it would be easier if they were dead. How are they doing with staying in present time versus jaunting off into the past and living their life in that nightmarish past, or projecting out into the future and anxiously living in our Argentum Nitricum future? How do they do with the whole family experience? Having a family, being part of a family, partnering, parenting. Are they able to be present with other people that they are in relationship with? How do they manage expectations of other people or other people's expectations of them? How do they do with carrying burdens, appropriate burdens, inappropriate burdens? How do they do with weaving the tapestry of family? And family can be blood relatives, family can be work community, family can be urban tribe. Do they have these skills? And how do they do with financial literacy? Are they okay with managing their money, their income, their investments, their debt management? Maybe you're going to find out at this point that this person is a gambler and they have huge debt. So you can see that all of these things could be very rich topics of conversation to help you understand their adaptation in the world and the way they are constrained and the difference between what is now and what is optimal. And these 40 minutes or 50 minutes or 90 minutes give you an opportunity. Same thing with the emotional column. Are they aware of their feelings? Can they feel what is happening right now? How do they do with expressing their emotions? How do they do with empathy for others? Do they have stable emotional regulation? Can they initiate and engage? Can they inhibit? When you initiate an emotion like joy, like laughter, you let it out, you engage with it. But if it gets too big, then it's dysregulated. You don't want people who are going into manic stuff. If that happens, then you need to know about it. Do they have equanimity? Can they manage strong emotions? Do they have the capacity to feel something intense and also choose and think and decide as a mature adult? What are their coping skills? Are they developing and implementing capable adaptive coping? Are they recognizing and modifying coping skills that they have that are not adaptive? Like when somebody says, oh, okay, we'll just do it your way. And then they go away and they're mad because we're just doing it your way. That's maladaptive. And what about their people skills? Are they able to build trust? Are they able to show respect for others? Do they have boundaries in relationship? Do they have appropriate social awareness, especially those people who have social anxiety? Do they have tolerance for things that are different than them? And what about engagement? Are they able to be embodied? Do they live in themselves and in their life versus dissociation? And if we look at this continuum, I often talk with clients about this continuum. There's neutral in the middle, where you're not authentically becoming more of who you really are. There's avoidance on this end, where you are actually not who you are. You're pretending you're something else, even though you know on a really root level that that's not you. And then over here, there's actualization. This is where you are becoming genuinely and authentically more and more and more of who you are. You're engaged with whatever your purpose is on the planet. You're engaged with people in a meaningful way. Where are you on that continuum? Almost always, you're going to find people with substance abuse over here on the avoidance side. You're going to find people with workaholic issues over here on the avoidance side. And you'll be able to use this then as a template to measure improvement with the client as the avoidance gets less and they get up to neutral. And this is very often fix what's broke is over here in the avoidance end. And then neutral is the self-regulatory mechanism part of the therapeutic process. And then over here on the actualization, this is the building capacity. As you start to discuss with clients in this way, you'll begin to see, oh, where are we? And health, genuine self-sustaining health is always over here in the actualized end. Okay, so then in the mental column, we've got cognitive function. Does the person have the capacity for critical thinking and problem solving and decision making? You know, these are the clients with irresolution issues. They just never brought it up with you. Or are they able to prioritize? Can they say, this is the most important thing for me to do today and I'm doing it first? Or is it all a confused jumble? And you know, the people who have organization issues, their house is a mess. This is a huge issue for people who are hoarders. And sometimes in this conversation, it's come out with a client that they have a hoarding issue. Are they able to focus well? How's their memory function, their short-term memory, their long-term memory? Are they able to locate themselves in time and space? Do they go off to the grocery store and they can't remember how to get back home? Do they have the capacity for reflection and learning? Can they look at their experiences and acquire new skills? Can they refine their behaviors based on their experience? Are they able to navigate change? You know, this becomes a very important conversation at certain specific eras in life. If you have a client who's just graduating from college, they're about to go through a big change. Do they have the skills and the confidence to navigate that change or not so much? What if it's somebody who's retiring from their work? And do they have the skills to navigate the change into the post-retirement era? How are they going to spend their time? How are they going to have meaning and value? How are they going to replace the social interaction? You know, these are things where you can connect them with resources to help them do this. How's articulation for this person? Are they able to communicate in writing? Are they able to communicate verbally? Are they able to actually prosecute their agenda in language? Can they debate somebody? How's their self-talk? You know, this is a big one for people where inside they may look very successful and together on the outside, but on the inside, their self-talk is just lots of ego bashing. And what about the client's imagination? Do they envision future positive things in their life? Do they have a playfulness in their life? Do they have a creative expression, a creative outlet in their life? And then we've got all the physical stuff that we're more familiar with. What about their metabolic stuff? Are they able to thermoregulate? Do they regulate water well, or do they always have puffy ankles? How do they do with biorhythms in time? That thing where 3 a.m. is always a bad time, but they just never mentioned it. What about micronutrient regulation? What if they don't do well with calcium? And then lifestyle influences. This is a great time to talk to people about toxic exposure and diet and exercise, and what you can review again exactly what meds they're on and how they're taking them. And substance abuse issues. Sometimes this is when you say, what's the most important thing we can be talking about? This is where the person tells you that they have an opioid substance use issue. And then maturing and aging, navigating normal signs of development. How are they in their stage of life? How are they in preparing for the next stage of life? How are they in cleaning up business from the previous stages of life? How's their self-care? How's their experience of symptoms and their capacity to describe those things? How's their energy? All of these things, you can imagine that this is a very rich tapestry to work with clients. Are you guys discussing these things with clients now? So how would we have this conversation with a client? You get out a copy of, you say, great, I'm glad you're doing so well. We have this gift of this time together. I would like to talk to you about the breadth of your health. And then you hand them this page and you say, this is a map of the skill sets of healthy humans. Looking over this chart, where are your strengths? What do you see? Can you circle 3 or 4 things in there that you think are your greatest strengths? And then after they do that, you can ask, are there some things that are missing links? Like, the people who always get lost say, yep, whatever it was about orientation, I never got those genes. I can't do that. And so that becomes a missing link. And then you can say, where would you like to build greater capacity? Well, I am actually terrified about money. And every year before I have to file my taxes, I don't sleep for 3 weeks. Okay, good to know. Why are you terrified about money? And now you're off and running in a conversation that is really therapeutically useful. Okay, so then once they have identified these areas that are either missing links or where they would like to build their capacity, and you ask them, so how would this thing be different if it were a strength for you? How would you feel? What would you do? How would you be different in the world if you had that strength right now? How does the experience of that missing link or yet to be developed skill, whatever it is, limit you in your life now? And again, all of these things are things that are helping us to see what is the client's adaptation in the world. In what way are they constrained? And what is the difference between what we've got now and what would be optimal? Okay, do you see how this conversation can work with the client, and how there's an opportunity here with these 3 conversations that we've talked about? The first one is the therapeutic process. Are we in the fix what's broke? Question from Vera, what if the client doesn't want to go deep? Just fix it. And when that is fixed, I will not come back because it's expensive. Yes. And that is the client's right. And they are, they are in charge of their health. And so usually at that point, I will say, I'm glad to work with you in that way. And additionally, I'm kind of morally obligated to also discuss with you, what can we do to help you from falling back into that fix what's broke place quickly? I want to make sure that you get well and stay well. And so then at some point you can say simple things like, it would be a great idea if, in order to help keep you better, you were to continue taking cell salts, or Why don't we set a time in 6 months? If you're better and you just want to hang in with this, why don't we set a time in 6 months to check in? Or, you're doing well, and I am so glad for the success you've had. And call me if you need me. I will be here as a resource for you. So, this is one of those you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink thing. So for the people who sometimes just want that, we got to let them, we have to honor what their request is. But a lot of times people will bring up other things. Good question, Vera. Okay, so the bottom line for everything we've talked about here, if it's scheduled, then use it well. And my suggestion to you is that nobody leaves the consult early or in an incomplete state. Make sure that you offer them one or other things that you think up of these and then some options. And if the client chooses to decline that, then you accept gracefully and you figure out what you're going to do about money. Now, for me, the minimum charge that I have, if somebody comes in and spends 3 minutes, is half an hour. If they've scheduled a consult with me, they're going to pay for half an hour. If we had an hour-long consult and we only used 9 minutes of it, they're going to pay for half an hour. So you have to figure out what your policy is about that and know it up front so that when this situation comes up, you're not surprised. And then in your graceful acceptance of their not really wanting to engage further, then you can say, okay, thank you for coming in. So glad you're having good success. Let's settle up. This is what it's going to be for today. I'm here in the future if you need me, and there you go. All right, now if the client does engage, lay the groundwork for future work with them. Be more successful with that client because of the information that you gather. And the outcome of these and then some things, the 3 things we talked about. The first one, where are they in the therapeutic process? The second one, what's the most important conversation we can be having today? And the third one, the skill set. All of these can lead to the client being more engaged in their healing journey, in what health would really be, and motivated actually to attain that. And the practitioner has a stronger understanding of the client pattern, and this increases client satisfaction with the practitioner. The client then very often feels heard and cared about. So here's your homework. I want you to commit to becoming a successful and then some practitioner. I want you to take responsibility for providing this therapeutic space. I want you to face your fears about being, I'm going to be intrusive. They're not going to want this. They're going to think I'm an idiot. Whatever that is. They're going to reject me. I'm bothering them. Whatever your fears are, I want you to look at them squarely and say, I see you. Yes, that's a fear. And feel it. Feel it completely, and then surrender it to the highest good. And every time it comes up, feel it completely and surrender it to the highest good. This is about you. It is not about the client, and it should not be part of the and then some. Recognize that everything we've talked about today is about getting better client outcome. And then I want you to write some scripts. I've given you languaging here that I use, but that might not be the right languaging for you. I want you to write out some statements. How would you talk about the therapeutic process with your clients, the 3 stages? How would you talk about what's the most important thing we can be discussing today? How would you say we have this gift of this time together? How would you frame this for the client so that they get the attention and support of your presence there with them. Once you are ready to have these kinds of conversations, you have your script, you've got your dialogue, and you're ready to have that therapeutic process conversation. You're ready to have the what's most important thing we could be talking about conversation. You're ready to have the human skill set. What are your strengths? Where are your missing links? Where's your opportunity to build? Once you're ready to have those conversations, you will find that these things, these minutes where time opens up, will begin to happen in many of your consults. Not all, but often. And each time it happens, you will be ready to engage with the client in that way. Okay. So, do we have questions? For those of you who want to print off your CEU certificate, you can do a screen print right now that's got this continuing education webinar. And this is 1 hour of training in homeopathic client management and practitioner skills regarding interviewing and case taking. And these hours can be used for your continuing education CEU. And I'm glad to entertain questions if you guys have some. Okay. So we are all finished for our our webinar for today. Thank you for those who logged in, and also for those of you who are watching this in recorded format. Thank you for investing in your practice and in your clients. And this is the last of the spring webinar series, and I will be announcing the fall webinar series probably early in July. All right. I wish you all the very best. Thank you for your time and participation today. Take care. Bye-bye.